And there we go. So we are recording now. And welcome very much to the TScore training session. We have Chris Edwards with us here, which you should be able to see Chris on the screen right now. If you can say hi, Chris. Chris has come all the way to East Petersburg, Pennsylvania to speak to us about his scoring software that he developed. And we are really grateful for him to make the trip, even though it wasn't entirely just for us, but still very thankful for that. We are going to be running this session with Chris making a presentation. If you're online, you will be able to type in questions. There's also an option that you should see to call in a question. Those questions, when we receive them, we'll wait to the appropriate time and then we'll pass them on to Chris so that he can answer them. This is being recorded, so it will be available for playback later. And we do also have a live audience here as well, and they will be asking some questions in addition. So with no further ado, we're going to turn this over to Chris, let him begin to talk to us, and I'm going to turn some of these lights down in the background so it's a little bit easier for everybody to see. So thank you very much, and give me 1 second here. I'll send this back to Chris.
Right, hello everyone, and hello to the vibrant audience here. It's my first time in Pennsylvania, so I've had a good time looking at the buggies going up and down streets and things. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so I gather we've got a number of people online as well as people here. So if I'm shouting a bit too loud for people online, it's because the people here aren't paying attention, and vice versa. And it's all gone dark. The lights have gone out. So can I read my notes still? Just about. I'm all right. We'll manage. I'll be okay. Right. So I think a lot of you have actually used TScore before. Some of you haven't. So what I'll do is take you through. I've got 4 sections to this. It could last some time, so I will give you a comfort break in the middle, so you don't have to sit there with your legs crossed all the time. So the first section that I want to run through is really just a basic introduction telling you what TScore is about from the point of view of the person who's doing the recording. So all those of you who are going to be sitting next to the panels or on those panels actually entering the scores in the computer, this is the bit where you'll really come in and start working out how to use the software. Then the subsequent sessions start going through the lights keep coming off here. It's amazing. Subsequent sessions go through how to set up a competition and then how to troubleshoot when things get tricky. So I'll be swapping between bits of PowerPoint and bits of program. So please excuse any jumping around in between. So here we go. So we're going to start off then. So this is the agenda for the first section. We're going to go through a quick overview of what TScore is. We're going to get you started on where the basics are around the screens and so on. Quickly drop into showing what recording is actually about, how to make corrections, and then how to print and how to export the scores, and then also how to monitor the progress of the competition. And then finally a section on VScore, which is the second bit of software that actually gives a continuous projection of all the scores and results as you're going along. I'm just going to adjust my views on screen here a bit so I can also see what I'm talking about, which will be a big improvement. Right, so let's carry on. Click, there we go. So what is TScore? It's a bit of software that records and prints the scores at trampoline and gymnastics events. Now, this was primarily developed in the UK, but it's now grown arms and legs over here in the States. And I'll apologise for sounding a bit British at times, so please pick me up if I use the wrong terminology. It's now able to handle trampoline, double mini tramp, synchro. It can do sports acro. It does women's and men's artistic, and it also does pole sports for those of you who are interested in the more entertaining side of our gymnastics fraternity, and was actually used in the World Championships for that last week, which was quite exciting. It's software that runs on more than one computer networked together, and they share a single database. So you've got all your data in one place on one of those computers, but you can have multiple scoring and presentation stations all connecting to that same database. The database itself is a pretty robust one. It's used commercially. It's called Postgres, and has been around for a long time, and is I've been using it for over 10 years without a problem, so that has to say something for it if I can't break it. The main principle behind TScore itself is to make it really easy to learn, because we realize that a lot of the times you've got parents or helpers who are coming in at the last minute. They turn up at your meet and you've got about a minute and a half running around with your hair on fire trying to teach them how to use this bit of software. So the last thing you want it to be is difficult. So it is designed to be very easy to learn and require minimum time. I generally spend between a minute and 2 minutes with a new person, showing them how to go through. And on a good day, I may get no questions at all. On a bad day, I may get 1 or 2 questions through the day. So it normally is pretty straightforward. It doesn't just do recording, though. It also lets you organize the meet in terms of importing your athlete rosters, doing timetabling, scheduling. It can handle communications around the event, so it can email out all the start times for everybody and so on. And it also includes the vScore program, which is what the part of it that we use for continuous presentation of the results. That should normally be a case of you kick it off when you get there in the morning and forget about it. It just looks after itself. But we will cover that in a minute. So a bit on terminology. There are some significant differences between the UK and the US. It isn't for nothing that we aren't called two nations separated by a common language. So just to let you work out what some of the terminology is where it might not flow across completely. So a competition is what you would normally call a meet, but that can comprise one or more events over one or more days. So that's like your whole meet. It can be over a weekend. It can be multiple disciplines and so on. So a discipline or an event is one of something like trampoline, synchro, DMT, tumbling. So that's the type of exercise being performed. A panel is a judging station effectively within that. So you would have one panel judging one trampoline, one panel judging a DMT track. You might have 3 panels judging a tumbling track if you've got three concurrent classes running through that particular section. I've seen that done. But it's basically one scoring station, well, of up to 8 people in some cases. A class, that's a set of gymnasts or athletes, we use the term interchangeably, competing in the same age group, the same grade or level, and the same gender grouping. It may be male, female, it may be mixed gender. Levels and grades, interchangeable terminology again. So, for example, a class might be the women's 11 to 15 level 5 trampolining. Now, within each of those, you've got a round, which is a single performance or a routine or a pass. So that could be one tumble run, it could be one trampoline routine, it could be one pass on the DMT. Now, you will see terminology like set, vol, and finals being used occasionally for trampolining. In most places now, they've been swapped over to just rounds 1, 2, and 3 because everyone's changing them around to mean different things. But just in case you bump into those words at all. And then the final set of things here, we have things like execution, difficulty, bonus, HD for horizontal displacement, time of flight, and penalties. And those are all different types of scores. Those of you who are familiar with judging will know what those are. Those of you who are just doing recording may not know what they are, but as long as someone reads them out to you and say the horizontal displacement score is 9.8, that's all you need to know. But you'll see spaces for those within the software as we go through. So when you fire up TScore, first of all, you'll see this on the main screen. And as a recorder, all you need to do is click on the score this competition. But just briefly, you will see that up here, we've got, I wonder if I can use this. There's a sneaky thing on here that allows me to highlight stuff. So let me see what I can do. There we go. So up here, we can see the name of the database that we're connected to and the server that's got that database on it. We got the name of the competition. So you might just want to check that you're at the right meet, because just occasionally someone leaves it set up on the wrong one. So also, if you're setting up competitions, make sure that you name them carefully, especially if you've got a test competition you set up first. Make it very clear it's a test one and not the real one, because someone's bound to pick the wrong one at some point. So let's just see if I can remember how to clear that. I must apologize for not being hugely familiar with this particular meeting software, but I shall get there in a second. Back to click. Right. So the normal button that you'll need to click, though, is that one, score this competition. And that takes you straight into the scoring screen, which will typically look like this. Now, when you first go in there, at the top of here, you've got the, I'll swap into paint mode again. No, highlighter mode. At the top of this, you've got something saying what sort of event it is. And that's there you can pick things like trampoline, tumbling, DMT. That lets you filter the list down. The next one across, you've got which panel it's on. So that's the judging station. And so that lets you, again, reduce the choice of those classes down to the ones that are running in a particular location. And then you've got the list of classes. And I'll show you these in the software properly in a minute, and it'll make perfect sense then. In the next section down here, we've got the place where you actually put the scores in. And you'll notice above each of these sections, you've got little markers, E1, E2, E3. Those are the execution scores. There's a difficulty score here. Moves is used mainly in trampolining. If someone doesn't complete their entire routine, you may want to record how many moves they actually performed there, because it can affect some qualification scores. But normally leave that blank, and that just means that they completed the whole routine. If they actually failed to compete, you can put a 0 in there, and then that shows that they performed no moves in that routine. Now, there is a change due to come through in the I've been asked to do that. I'm going to try to get in the software in the next few weeks, and that's one to actually record an athlete who just turns up and salutes to get the credit for that, but doesn't actually compete. And so there may be a separate checkbox at some point to allow you to say this person just saluted but didn't actually perform a routine. Over here, we've got a withdraw button. If the competitor is no longer taking part in that competition, they're marked as withdrawn. Even if they're partway through the event, they can be withdrawn. And then you've got the main list of entrants down here. And we'll see all this lot working live in a minute, so it'll then make a lot more sense. So the first thing you'd normally do is to go and select the class. So this is a quick way of doing this, but I don't think there is. So let's go through here to pick the class. Let's clear those markers off so we can see what we're doing. So we pick trampoline from there, and then we pick the panel we're on. And then you get a list of the classes down here. So we'll pick this one. These are UK classes in this one, I'm afraid. So, but the same things apply. You'll figure that out. There'll be some US examples in a bit. Once you've clicked on that, that then gives you the list of the entrants who are in that particular class or category, and you can then start entering the scores. Change my pages over. What we do is we start entering the scores in there, and oh, hang on, where are we? Yeah, you can actually start ordering these. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So if you click on these headers up here, you can actually change the order, but for any of these columns, and you click again to reverse the order, and then a third time just resets it back to the normal program start order. So those are just handy ways of finding people in there if you need to. Right, how you pick a gymnast? Well, one way to do it is just by clicking on the actual line in the list down here. You click on them here. The other way is to navigate by using these buttons. They'll let you move forwards and backwards through the list. That's clicking on the list there. Oh, hang on. back one there. And each time you click on those and change the gymnast, it just puts their scores and their scoring section up here in the middle, where you can then start filling them in. Normally, you'll be running through the gymnasts and athletes in the order that they've been set to compete. Just occasionally, someone runs out of order, so you've got to keep an ear open for the chair of the panel to make sure that you're putting the scores in against the right person. Okay, so actually putting the scores in is very simple. You just put the numbers in, and you don't need to put the decimal points in. TScore will normally work those out for you, unless there's an extreme edge case, they've scored 0.7 or something, then you might need to just put the 0.7 in, but you can just put 0.7 would normally do that. If, however, you get something wrong, TScore will try its best to explain what's gone wrong and what you need to do about it. So these are some of the errors that you might see appearing. It'll normally say things like invalid score entered, and it tells you what you've entered, and then says, you need to enter a number between 0 and 20, for example. It'll also give you a warning if you put scores in that aren't quite right, if you've missed one out, or if the form scores exceed the allowed tolerance, which is by default in here, if they're more than 1.0 apart. For the coming season, I believe that's been reduced in some of the USAG levels to 0.3 or even 0.1 in one case. The next one is that if you miss things out, you miss out the difficulty or the tariff score, as it's called sometimes, then you'll get a warning there. And if you've got more than one of those in there, it'll try to list out all the things you've got wrong. So you get prompted through until you get it right. The other thing you can do to find a gymnast is to just double click the name up there and start typing. So if you double click on that gymnast name at that point, you get an input field, and you can just start typing the person's name. And as you type each letter, it'll filter down the list, so you can pick the person you want from there. So that's a quick way of finding someone. If you've got a long list and you just take a shortcut through to find them, that's kind of handy. So actually entering the scores themselves, we normally use a number pad. You don't usually need to put the decimal point in, as I said before. You move between the score boxes by either clicking the next box with the mouse, or by hitting tab or enter, or you can use the arrow keys. And if you want to go backwards, you can use shift tab or use the arrow keys, or whatever you want to do. So most things that you'd expect to work on there will work. Also, if you use the enter button to enter and go to the next entry field, when you get to the last one, it will automatically submit those results and move you on to the next competitor, which is kind of useful because it means you can work very quickly without having to keep moving the mouse around all the time. So you can type, enter, type, enter, which is much quicker. If there's an error within a particular box that you're filling in, it'll tell you as soon as you move out. If you put 999 in, it'll complain that there's something wrong with it. But anything that is inconsistent across that entire result set, though, will actually be reported when you try to save the whole set. So it'll let you go back and correct things until you're happy with it, and then enter the whole lot. So here's a bit of an example. So we've got scores of 7.6, 7.4, 7.0, 7.5, 7.7, and a difficulty of 1.5. So you can do that with relatively few key clicks. You just put 7.6 tab, 7.6, 7.4 tab, 7 tab, 7.5 tab, 7.7 tab, 1.5, and then that will always just fill in the points at in the right position for you. So that makes entering scores about as quick as it can be. If you do need a score that's less than 1, just put a 0 or a decimal point in front of it. And if you mess up by putting like 76 point, it'll realize what you meant and turn it to 7.6. There is some color coding on those scores as well, so that when you enter them initially, they go in blue. and when you save them, they'll go black. If you change one and go back to edit it afterwards and change it, it goes green to show it's been changed. And so you'll see that when I work through a quick demo in a second. And then just save to pick the next competitor. Now, normally it asks you to confirm that save operation. You can override that and say, okay, don't tell me anymore, just save it. That's fine. But by default, it does prompt you and say, do you want this information to be saved? So this is corrections. When you do get something wrong, and you're bound to, because either the person read it out wrong or your fingers got tied in and not on the way, all you do is you go back to that gymnast that you entered and start over typing the numbers that are wrong. So just either mark or go into the box and hit delete or backspace, whatever you need to get the right values in there, put the right numbers in, and you'll see the ones that you've changed show up in green. And then when you save it, that will save those results. If you want to delete the entire set of results for a gymnast, there's a clear button just to the left. So that's nice and straightforward. This all sounds horribly complicated, but when you're sitting there actually doing it, it's really, really very easy. Now, the other thing that sometimes happens is you start typing the scores into the wrong round. So they're doing their first pass and you started entering in the second pass or vice versa. And for those, there are ways that you can copy the entire set of results across. You have to go back and re-enter them every time. So you can just do put the mouse within one of those fields and then hit Control S to copy the first round. I would just go straight for copying all the rounds. Control A, that copies the whole set. So you can copy all the scores from all the rounds just by clicking Control A while you're in there. And when that happens, you get these little buttons appearing at the top of the screen here. I think those now actually say round 1, round 2, round 3 rather than set and vol. But we'll see that when we do it in a moment for real. And then to actually move those into another scoring location, you simply pick the score you want, the place you want to put them in, and then either hit the button or you can hit Control J, K, L, or M to paste the rounds 1, 2, 3, or 4 in there. I normally have a little crib sheet because I always forget those letters myself, but you can always use the buttons, which is what I do. Now, the next one is something that's caught me out a few times, and this is where you're busy putting all those recorded scores in, and you realise that one of the athletes actually withdrew from the competition and hasn't competed, and you've put all the scores for the last 15 people against the wrong person, and you've got to move them all up to fill the gap. You don't have to type them all in again, is the good news. If you just click on the Move Scores button here, that lets you, whoops, hang on, go back one. That lets you move all of the scores either up or down from that point you're at the moment. So you just select the current competitor, and it does give you quite a detailed description of what it's going to do. So read it carefully to make sure you're doing it in the right direction. It will warn you if you're going to overwrite some scores, but normally you're just filling a gap. But basically, you either move the scores down if that person didn't actually compete and you want to move everything down by 1, or you can move all the scores up if you missed one of the athletes out by mistake and you've got to shift them all up. Okay. Now, the thing about our sports is that we like making things complicated. We can't just have one scoring scheme that suits everybody. So we've invented one scoring scheme for each discipline, and then decided to subdivide those into different options as well, just to make things even more complicated. So TScore accommodates this by having different scoring schemes and different numbers of judges and different types of judges for each type of discipline, and even for each class within each discipline. So as you go through TScore picking different competitors, you will find that the scoring screens will change to reflect what that competitor is doing, what grade, what level they're at, and what discipline they're in. And here are a few examples. So the top one there, we've got one from from what was the old FIG scheme. Excuse me while I just lubricate my throat. Oh, that's better. I'm not quite sure what's in this drink. It tastes very strange, but it's wet, and that's what matters. So the first one has got 5 execution judges. It's got a difficulty on the second round only. Let's just put a marker in here so I can point to what I'm talking about. Where are we? Yeah, so here we've got 5 execution judges here. This is the first round up here. No difficulty for the first round. In the second round, we've got 5 execution judges and a difficulty score. Now, the next one is when we then moved over to the latest FIG scheme where we've got horizontal displacement in. We've now got 4 execution judges. I hope I'm not in everybody's way here. I'll duck down a bit. We've got 4 execution judges, 2 horizontal displacement judges, a penalty score, and again, a place to put the moves in if someone didn't complete their routine. Now, USAG, being different again, has now decided that they're going to go, I think, with a mixture of either 2 or 3 execution judges, only 1 HD score normally, and a penalty. So you will see all sorts of combinations going in there. Behind the scenes, there are also 3 or 4 different ways of working those scores out. There's a move now in USAG to go towards the median scoring system. Many of these solutions work with other schemes where it's discounting highest and lowest and adding the middle ones together, or in this case now doubling or trebling the middle ones. One thing to be aware of is that if there are fewer judges on the panel than the scoring system is expecting, you should leave the other ones blank if they're on there. If you start filling in values in them, it's liable to start calculating the scores from averages and things, which is going to probably mess things up. So you're best to leave it blank if that score wasn't recorded, and TScore will then apply the correct rules for that event because it does vary. The normal way of doing it would be to take the average of the scores that were recorded and then apply the normal scoring rules beyond that, which actually works quite well if you're doing the median, because if you're expecting 3 and only 2 scores went in, to get the median of 2, it actually becomes the average of 2. So it takes the middle score and you double that, and it all works out quite well. Third one down there, this was the old USAG scheme before HD. That was 3 execution judges, a difficulty, a penalty. The one at the bottom is really interesting. That's pole sports. They've got individual deductions for various elements, a deduction, a bonus, an artistic score, a penalty, you name it. I don't know what they get up to on those poles, but it's complicated. Right, so let's pop back to normal and next screen. I better clear the markup. The markup carries through. Without that, that's him. You don't do this in the US, so I'll skip over it. But this is a range and conditioning thing that we have in some competitions where they have to do a separate mini gymnastics floor routine just to show flexibility and strength and so on. You don't need to worry about that. So I'll skip that one. What's it doing? Right. I'll tell you what, let's break at that and just show this in action, because I think we've gone through quite a lot there without seeing any of the actual software. So let me just come out of there a second and we'll have a look. So here we've got, this is actually the Region 6 one from 2 years ago, I think. So we go into here and we'll score the competition, and we've got a whole load of entrants in here. Oh no, this is just a demo I set up. We're okay. This is for today. So let's just look at trampolining, and we'll look at who's on panel 1 and pick. Let's have level 7. We see here we're set up for 2 execution scores and 2 HD scores at this point. I'll show you how to change that to 1 HD score in a moment. So if I want to put the scores in here, it's just a case of numbers go in there, 8-1, enter 8, 2, 8 to 8. If I put 8 to 8 in and try to get out of there, it'll tell me it's wrong, which is fine. Let's put him back in as 8, 3, that'll do. And then HD scores, let's have a 9, 8 and a 9, 9. Penalty, no penalty, leave that blank, no moves. So I can then from that point either go straight to hit save or just hit enter again and it'll take it through. And it says, so this is the thing about it, it doesn't let you move on to the next competitor until you've confirmed you want to save the results. So I've got a choice at this point. I can either save the scores and go on to the next competitor, or I can continue scoring the current competitor, or we can throw those scores away and go on to the next one. I'm going to save and go to the next competitor, but I'm actually also going to check this box that says, don't ask me this again, just do it. Hang on, we have a question from the floor. Okay. Right. You can either go enter, and when you get to change, it'll do that. That's one way to get to it. Or if you're on here and you just try to pick the next competitor, it will also say, hang on, you haven't saved the current one yet. So anything that tries to change to the next competitor will say, hang on, you need to save this first. Right, you're looking at one that's been done. Yes, yeah, that won't do it. If you hit the clear scores though on that one, it'll do. Just for those of you who are listening online, we've got a few guys running it live here as well, so they're getting a bit of assistance from Adam along the way. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to say, don't ask me again, just do it, and that saves me having all those unnecessary prompts coming up. I'm now ready to go straight to the next competitor. And I can just start putting the values in there. 7, 5, 7, 5, whatever, 9, 1, 9, 2. We'll give them a 0.3 penalty, and that's okay. If I then go to any way of changing that gymnast, let's try changing that one as well. It automatically saves that one and goes on to my next one. And I can go back if I now realize I've made a mistake, click on that previous one, pop in here. That one should have been a 7, 7. And we see we've now got that one showing that one's changed, and I need to do I can save, or again, any of the ways it gets me from that competitor one will now automatically save it. If you want to stop it auto saving, by the way, you can always just uncheck that little box up there, and that will take you back to giving the prompt to remind you each time. If you're a bit concerned, you might have gone through without meaning to. Now let's just I'll put one more in here. Let's do a 7, 3, 7, 3, 9, 7, 9, 7. That'll do us. Okay, so I've got to here and suddenly realised that actually, Anthony Andrews didn't actually compete. He had dropped out but not told anyone, and no one checked his name on the way through. So I could do with moving those two scores down. So actually, the scores are recorded for Anthony should be against Aaron, and the scores recorded for Aaron should be against Stephen. So what I'm going to do here is move those scores and say I'm going to move them down. That person didn't compete and has got the next person's scores. So do that, and away we go. We've now got Anthony's now got no scores in there. Aaron's got the scores that were against Anthony, and Stephen's got Aaron's scores. That button there. So if I realise I then got that one wrong, and say right, I need to move them back up again. It does warn you the scores for Aaron will be overwritten, but they're all zeros anyway. So that's yeah. Hang on, that'll be overwritten by that one, but that's okay. Let's move that up. No, hang on, just a minute. Let's look at that. Maybe I misread it. Let me check. Missed out this entrance to put there. It's got right. It was giving me the right warning. I should have marked that one, and then said move them up to fill that gap. That's better. I missed out this entrance to put their scores against the next person. There we go. It does it. So if it's trying to overwrite something, it'll tell you that there's a problem there. So you go away and have a look, make sure it's doing what you think it is, and then away you go. And that'll work for as many entrants as there are in that particular screen. Okay. anything else we can look at on scoring? Oh, one very frequent thing. Let's just go back to the Adam actually was withdrawn. So let's move all those scores down. And then I want to mark Anthony as withdrawn. I can hit the withdraw button up here and confirm. Yep. And you've now got an X in the withdrawal column on the right hand side there that shows they have withdrawn from the event and will not be competing. Okay. I'll just check with the audience here. Did all that lot make sense? I know that you've been trying to catch up, you two, but is that good? Okay. We seem to be on track. If anyone's got any questions from the from Interweb, please put them on the little comments thing, and we'll come back to those in a little while. So
okay, you're doing great, Chris. We don't have any right now, but we're going to stop you here as soon as we have some. But thanks a lot.
Okay, right then. Let's go back to our presentation then. Right, so printing. It seemed like such a simple thing when I first put this in, but it's grown arms and legs like everything else does. TScore can print all sorts of things. But the main things it's used for printing are results, certificates, and checklists. So the results are fairly self-explanatory. When you've finished a particular round of a particular class, you can print out the results for that class. And we've got various options on here to choose when you do so. Let me just find my magic highlighter again. So at the top, this is a really important one. I always forget to click that. And you may just want to preview the results rather than actually go straight to the printer. You sometimes want to have a look at that. This is also really useful if you've got a problem with your printer configuration. You're not quite sure. You keep hitting print and nothing happens. Drop into preview mode, and then it'll bring up a copy of Excel where you can actually choose which printer to send it to. Because quite often the default printer that's set for your laptop, when you move it out into the middle of a gym somewhere, there's that printer isn't available, so it ends up sending your wonderful printed results off into the ether somewhere, and they never shall be seen again. So using preview is a good way of seeing what's going on. Now the results you print, you've got individual class results. These are the ones that you'll normally be doing. I know some meets, and this was specifically put in for the US market. You do this per flight model of putting results out for each flight because everyone gets a prize, and so that's the option there. What it will actually do, it'll print out both the per flight results and the overall one normally, because they all turn up in the same spreadsheet. The last one there, the print team results. This is something that I don't believe you particularly do in the US. So we may not need to talk about it much at all. But within FIG and certainly within the UK, we do this. We have this concept of teams, which is a minimum of 3, a maximum of 4 athletes who are in the same class. That's the same grade, gender, and age. And you take the top 3 scores from each round for those kids, and then that gives them their team score. And that works really well for things like where you've got schools competing or competitions between gyms, and they get mini teams coming up. It's quite a good way of running things. But since you don't do that, I'll shut up about that one. Oh, we have a question.
See, I'm going to see if you can hear me here. So a question that we've had is in the past and has been asked is when you're looking at the say the whole meet overall, is there a way to come up with top scores, not just within age categories or within classes, to say just all boys or all girls on this event?
There's no direct way to do that, but what I would normally do there would be just go to the export the full set of results, and then just sort the Excel spreadsheet on whatever column you're interested in, because sometimes you want the highest execution score, sometimes you want the highest total score. So that's what I'd normally do. I just use the export for that at the moment. if that is something that you do frequently, I'd be happy to look at it. It could be quite an interesting one to do.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So the other thing with these results is that TScore makes a lot of use of Microsoft Office for good reason, because Microsoft Office has got a wealth of formatting capabilities in there. So you can put all sorts of wonderful things in. You can personalize the result sets with your own logos and all these sorts of things simply by editing the templates that you want that are used when it's generating these lists. We'll cover off a bit of that in one of the later sessions this afternoon for how you can do that. But that's a really useful feature if you want to put your own spin on the results. And also, if you've got maybe some layouts that don't quite work because you've got very long names for gyms or something like that. Now, you can actually print these out. I generally do it from a central control desk myself, but I know that some people actually have a printer on each panel, and they print them out locally. There's no reason why not. Or you could have each panel sending their print results to a central Wi-Fi connected printer, or any network printer, to be honest. Again, when we get onto the software configuration, I'll show you how to change which printer the results go to. Other things down here, we've got the checklist. Now, these are like the athlete rosters that are used on the day. You've got the most important one has got to be the manual recording sheet, because that's your backup, because software and hardware has a habit of going wrong. And with the best will in the world, you want to make sure you've got something on paper as well. So I can't emphasize enough, always have a paper recorder as well. It works wonders. It's also great if there's a dispute, you've got a second independent copy, so that so someone can't just say you must have mistyped that. You've got it written down as well. It's a pretty fair bet that it is what was scored. So there are three lists there. You've got the manual recording sheet, the chair's checklist, and the marshal's checklist. There's no desperate reason why the second two need to be very different, but you can choose your layouts again by messing with the templates as you see fit. So you can put whatever you want on there. I know that some marshals like to tick off the number of practice routines that people have done and things like that. There's scope for that. You can also print multiple copies if you want more than one set of the results coming out. You want one lot to go off and get signed by the chair, another lot to stick on the wall or whatever, and the third lot for presentation. You just click that and it multiplies them out when it prints them. The other one here, certificates. Certificates are quite a useful thing in many places, because this can give you something a bit beyond just a certificate of participation. This actually fills in their results as well. So it gives the scores, the position they came in. If you've got qualification or mobility or mobilization scores, those can be included, and says, qualified to at this level on this date. So they've got a bit of paper that actually tells them what they did and what they achieved, which is kind of nice. The way that I generally do that, I have pre-printed backgrounds. So I have the certificate background with whatever's appropriate for my meet, and then just use a monochrome laser printer just to overlay the details. That works really well, and it's really quick. You can print these off sort of 3 or 4 seconds each. Range and conditioning, you don't do. I'll skip that. Right. Back to my correct mouse pointer. There should be a hotkey for this, shouldn't there, really? Let's erase those and back into here and go to that one. Right, we're in business. Oh, I just said all that. I wish this PowerPoint would keep up with me. So a couple of things to watch out for. When you're printing certificates, it will actually note if they've already been printed. So every time you run through a print run for a certificate, it does put a little marker on there to say this competitor's had their certificate printed. But you can override it if you need to do a reprint or they want a second copy or whatever. You can override it here by picking the reprint previously printed certificates. If you also want to have a pre-printed set that you hand out, just a certificate of participation, you can do that as well, just by, once you've got the meet set up, just click on the print certificates without scores, and it'll then just go through and produce a certificate. Otherwise, it'll only print out the ones that had scores recorded against them. one thing that always catches people out is when they go straight from their scoring screen, say, right, let's print the results. And they go to print results, and all the bits that say print results are grayed out. And the reason for that is that it'll only print out the results for one class at a time. So you have to select a single class before you can do the print results. It'll stop you otherwise, because it can't cope with doing a whole lot in one go. Okay. At the end of the meet, or in my case, halfway through sometimes, if I feel like taking a few spare copies, you then export all the results out so they can be shared around and get a complete summary of everything that's happened. And for this, you go through the import-export option, which I'll show in a second. And you can click on the export results to Excel up the top there. There are a few options there for information you want to retain. Now, generally, if you're just producing results to be published on a website, you don't want to put any unnecessary PII out there. So you wouldn't want to include things like date of birth or email addresses, and probably not even the USAG number either. But if you're producing that result set to go off to someone for official sanctioning, for example, then you would want to include some of that additional information. If you're sending that information out to someone who's organising a second round of an event where they need the contact details for the individual athletes, then again, you might include the email addresses in there so they've got immediate contact for the qualifiers from that last event. That's all fairly self-explanatory. Otherwise, we will cover off the other options on this screen at a later point in these sessions. Oh no, we're going to do it now. I'll get my order right in a minute. That's what happens. I'm not actually looking at my notes and making it up as I go along. Okay, so the other thing that you do when you finish the event is actually normally take a safe copy of that database, so that you can put it off to an archive somewhere, but also maybe you want to share it with somebody else. This is also what you tend to do if you're setting up the competition and the event on your own computers, but then you need to export it and import it onto the actual kit that's being used at the gym for the actual meet. The export itself is actually just a Postgres SQL text export, so it's very legible. You can use that to import into a database directly, or you can bring it in through TScore. Okay. Now, this is something that the recorders are less likely to do, but the person who's running the meet is very interested in, and that is, how late are we? So TScore does its best to have a good guess at what time things are going to take. It knows how far through you've gone, and so it can give you a pretty good idea of when things are going to finish. With varying degrees of success, I find I'm generally within about 5 or 10 minutes of the finish time. By the time I get to lunchtime, I know pretty much what time it's going to finish at the end of the day, barring accidents. But this does depend very much on you getting the timings set up correctly for each of the events that you've got going through. But it works quite well. You can refresh things from here. It'll show you up the top here what you've got to do, what you've got to run. Let's go here. So here, we when we click on each of these classes down here, you can see which panel it's on, when it was planned to start, how long it was due to last, and when it was planned to finish. You can see the number of entrants in that. There were 31 entrants, and they've got 2 passes to do. So 31 done, 31 done. That means both those passes have now completed. So everyone's competed in that particular event. In fact, this is a completed competition I'm looking at here, so they're all completed. It will also tell you the last time the scores for that were updated, how many minutes are left to go, and whether it's finished. You see there's one here, this one here, under 19 Girls Elite. This is still running at the moment. There's actually that one looks as if 2 people didn't turn up, because you'd normally have pass 1 completed before pass 2 starts. In this case, there's 2 missing from there, so that's a good indicator for me that 2 people withdrew but haven't been marked as withdrawn. So TScore doesn't think those are finished yet. It still thinks there's only 93% done. So it's a really useful snapshot to see how far through the event you are. But it can do more than that, because you can also go straight from here through to printing. So I'll generally sit with this screen up, and when I see that one of these classes is finished, let's say this one's finished, but it hasn't been printed yet. So I can go straight through to print results up here, and that will drop me straight through to print within that particular class in a single click. And I can then confirm what I want to print off for that class, and then come back through to this screen again. And that will then be marked as printed. There's another little trick here, which is that you can tell it to hide the classes that have been printed. So that way, the only thing you see on this screen are the ones that haven't been finished yet or that still need your attention. And so again, as someone sitting there organizing the event, that's really useful, because you can see which ones need doing and which ones are ready to go. It also, as I say, when you see something like that, it means that there's almost certainly a couple of people who have withdrawn and haven't competed. And for those, you can go through to view scores for that class, and that'll let you just drop straight into that class again and see the result, see the current score to that, and spot the people who may not have had a score, and you can withdraw them from your station rather than have to go across the panel and take them out there. The other thing I say, it does try to tell you how late things are. This one was particularly bad, but that was really caused by the fact that on panel 1 here, we had these that should have finished at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're still going at 4:30 because someone hadn't withdrawn the last 2 competitors and closed off that class. So that was just more of a glitch than a real thing. But otherwise, panel 2 is finished and panel 4 is on schedule. So panel 4 has just got a couple of more to go, and then we're done. Okay. So let's go back to here again. Let's clear those and over to here. Right, the next one was on VScore. So what I might quickly do is pop back into the program, and we will have a quick look at those print options. So here's the prints, and actually let's just try first of all, if I switch that back to all classes and go into print, you'll see here what I was talking about before. This isn't here. I can't print the class results, and that's exactly what you'll see. It also won't let you print checklists because it doesn't know which ones to do. So if I then go and pick a single class, actually, which one was it that had the results? Let's have a look. There they are. Level 7, M 13 to 14. There we go. And then go into print, and I can hit preview, print the individual class results, and it'll probably fire up on the other screen, knowing my luck. Yes, it has. It's come up on the other screen. Here we are. And there's results that have come through for those. I say the layout of this can be modified as you need to. It is just Excel doing the printing, so you've got all the options within there to set it up as you need to. If you want to have it printing landscape or portrait, you can define the template however you want. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, I was looking at the monitoring thing. So the competition status, that's this button down here, was the one we just saw. And this is where you see all the things. It's really late, this one now. God, I should be shot. But yeah, if I hide the printed classes, that will reduce it down to just the ones that haven't been printed yet. If I look at, oh, actually, none of these got any results in, have they? Some should have. Where are the ones we just started? I'm afraid this, the screen here is a little bit shorter than we'd normally have, so I'm not seeing the bottom of the screen, I'm afraid. I'm just trying to see we've got those scores we just did. When were they on? About at the bottom somewhere. I'll tell you what, let's do that instead. That will find it for us. Should do. Can't see them. That's got me confused. It was 7 boys. Roll down a bit. So I'm trying to work out why it's not showing up. Level 7 men there. Total entries. Oh, that's interesting. P1 done, not showing up. I'm sure I saved those results. Refresh. No, I've got something wrong. Let me worry about that one later. If I come back on that one. it should be showing that one as having been done. I suspect it may be because I haven't set and saved the timetable for this one yet, which is what's messing it up. It's just taken defaults for that one. We'll come back on that when I do the timetabling side of things. Right, so the next one was page on VScore. So this is what I'll do. I'll actually bring the software up for this one first rather than the other one. So this is VScore, which you generally leave running all day long. These are 28 Region 6 championships. Oh yeah, they'll do. So let's do a show all. And if we just do a show scores on here, hang on, I've got to put it on the right screen first of all. Let's close that off again. I need to tell it to use a second monitor because I'm on the second monitor. Now, normally you have this running on your laptop on this side, and then you have a projector or a big screen running as your second monitor. And then as soon as you click second monitor, it should appear on the other screen. And in this case, this is the other screen I've got it on. So it turns up here. And this will then start cycling through according to timings that you can set within VScore to show you the latest scores, and then cycle through each of the events, each of the classes that's actually got a score at the moment. And it slides through all those. You've got choice over colors, you've got choice over the timings on this, but I just generally fire it up first thing and then walk away and leave it and let it do its thing. That's pretty handy. I filter the scoring results that are cycling through just for that particular. Yeah. For those of you online that may not have heard that, Adam was just saying that one of the tricks he uses, there's this filter classes option, and you can set it which panel to show. So if you set up VScore to run on the recorder's computers as well for each panel, with a big 40-inch LCD monitor behind them, you can actually just have the results for that panel being shown on each panel as well. And so you just set this up and leave it running, picking the panel you want. So if I'm on panel 1, I'd just clean out the others, and then I would only see the things that are on that panel. You can also filter by apparatus or by day and by event. So the apparatus thing only applies to the artistic stuff. But yeah, if you're doing that, then that filters it down to the things that are on panel 1, and you go through then to show scores, and you'll just see the things on your panel. If you've got a garage full of monitors, that's a great option. Okay, come out of there. It lets me out. You will find that this the VScore will only react to those mouse clicks when it's about to change state. So it's normally sitting idle, and when it goes to then sort of, it hits the end of one of its timing loops and starts moving, it will then close down and react to any mouse clicks. So don't be surprised if you click on it and nothing happens until it starts its next activity. It's designed not to sit there continually polling and thrashing things away. So it is designed to be marked on the left. There are a few other options on here that are useful. So I showed the show second monitor and show newest score. That was the big orange one that came up in the middle, was newest score. I've now just recently added in something to let you change the color of that, because someone said that orange wasn't showing up too well on their monitors. So I've given a color option change for that, which I'll show in a second. Team scores, that relates to the teams thing I mentioned earlier that we do in the UK and some other countries. You probably wouldn't need to do that. You could introduce photos and images between each of the classes that come up. So if you want to put a sponsor up there, or an advert for the gym, or advertise a local eatery, or whatever you need to do, you can just pop a set of images into a named folder, and then TScore, each time it goes around the loop of showing a class, will also then pick up the next one of those images and put it on screen for a fixed period of time, and then hide that and go on to the next one. So that's really useful. Something else that you can do is you can show a message. Now we normally have this one, no flash photography please, as a predefined default, because we always have to go and tell somebody, and it's useful to have there as a reminder. But I will typically also just do things like I don't know, lunch will be 20 minutes late, whatever. That's the sort of thing that's kind of useful for people to know. You tell them when the presentations are coming on, because otherwise you get everyone coming up to say, when the afternoon presentation is going to happen. So those turn up there. If I do that show scores again, you'll see that one appearing midway through the sequence here. Boom, boom. I should have showed you how to do timings first, adjusted those, shouldn't I, to shorten it. That one on there, and then we should get a message coming through, unless we've got Teams on as well. Boom, boom. There we go. So you get a message that comes up in the middle of it. That's a really handy option to have there as well. Out of there. Come on, we get there. Right. So you've also got some time limits in here. So you normally do recent ones only, and you can say which ones you want to see and put the max time in since a score was entered. So you only want them to be showing on screen for maybe an hour or so after that class is finished. So you can set a limit there, and then those just drop off the list once you get to that point. Otherwise, you get people at the end of the event standing there for an hour and a half waiting for their class to come round in a loop, and then they turn around and miss it, and all hell breaks loose. What else is there on there? Oh, there's a sneaky option on here which is called publish scores to website. I know that at least 2, possibly 3 US meets have done this so far. What this actually does, as far as TScore is concerned, is actually save those results to a local folder. It writes them out in HTML format. You've got some control over that format. It puts a page per result set there, and it gives you an index to drill down to where they are. But what you then need to do is to have a way of getting that from your local computer up to a website. I've seen people use various FTP synchronizing products. There are a number of open source variants out there, and these are basically, it's just a program you leave running on your computer that says, I want to make sure that this stays synchronized with what's on my website up here, and as soon as one changes and TScore updates it down here, this FTP software detects that and pushes it up to the internet, so that your spectators, and whether they're at the event or at home, can then just go to that website that you've set up and see the results happening live. That's far preferable to having them coming into your network at the gym, where they're going to actually drown your own local Wi-Fi and grind your scoring system to a halt, which is why I haven't published it out directly from here and wouldn't recommend it, unless you've got a very big Wi-Fi setup and a server that you're happy to throw at being the web server. It's possible. So all that lot's configured through the settings options here, which have come up on the other screen, of course. And we've got various colors where you can tell it to change colors automatically. So all those header backgrounds, you can have those that change color according to what panel the results have come from, so people can get to know what their panel color is. What else we got? So we've got various options there for changing colors. The licensing options over here as well, but you shouldn't normally have to bother with that one. When you've got multiple monitors running, it will tell you what size it thinks it is here. It's normally pretty good. Unfortunately, if you've got some HDMI monitors, mainly ones that were primarily designed as TVs rather than as computer monitors, have a habit of lying about how big they are. And they'll either boast that they're much bigger than they think they are, or they'll just make it up as they go along. So normally you can have auto fit done correctly, and that's fine. But if you find it's not the right size for the monitor you're on, uncheck that, and you can then manually set the width and the height in pixels to match the resolution of your monitor. It will cope with up to 3 monitors. They can be up to 4K resolution. I think the biggest one we've had is people running, I think, 63-inch 4K monitors against this, and it seemed to be quite happy. So that's the that setup. The photos I mentioned, you set the location here, so just paste in a location for where to go and look for those images, and it'll pull anything out. It'll cope with, I think JPEGs is the preferred format for it. It'll cope with BMP. I don't think it handles PNG at the moment, so best to go for JPEG. It also tells the frequency of them, so you don't normally put it up every class. You might say every set of 5 results, put an advert up for Joe's Diner. And how long to keep it on screen for, all in, that's in seconds. Database connectivity stuff, this is really just when we're connecting to databases. You'll see that in a sec. And display options, you can adjust the text size. Again, some of this is down to the way that monitors are configured and the way the software is, the way that Windows is configured. It may be trying to scale text on top of what we're trying to scale and fit. So you may need to do a little bit of adjustment if you've got an awkward monitor. But if you take off the auto fit rows, that will then let you have full control over that yourself. You can have bold characters. We also support international characters. I've got one customer running this in Greece, so we get I've got all of his screenshots through when he has a problem, and I can't even begin to start reading it, but it does support Unicode. Another option here, it says filter by time only, ignore the date. Normally when you're running a meet, you just want to see the results that have come in within that day. But sometimes when, like, you're doing this demo, this competition was run a year ago, and if it was trying to show recent ones, they'd never show up. So that's just a useful override. And here we've got timings. So you can display how long to display for each competitor. So if you've got 10 in a list, it'll be on screen for 10 seconds. Whether to pause before you start scrolling, how long to do that, pause between the steps, pause after scrolling, and how long to show the latest score. So all those things will be played with. The defaults are generally pretty good, though. You shouldn't need to play with them too much. And then we've got the web folder. So for publishing, where do I publish them to? And do I want to automatically refresh them? So each time TScore goes and picks up a new set of results, it pushes them out to there as it goes along. Okay, so that is vScore. The one thing I didn't show there was about connecting to databases. So when I connect to a database, TScore has multiple competitions and meets within its database, and you can pick out which ones you want here. So those are the ones we've got at the moment. I think was that one. Here's some East Midlands Championships. Here's the USAG JO from a couple of years ago. Connect through to that one, and I'll then see another set of things. No results on that one yet. I think that was an empty one. If you really want to, you can actually show more than one competition on there, up to 3, if you've got 3 different databases for any reason. I've seen that where people have had a separate database for each discipline, and they run DMT, tumbling, and trampolining on separate databases. But this can then scan across all 3 databases. It's quite happy. Right, I think that is just about it for that one. And if I'm right, that might actually be the end of deck 1. Okay, we've done that one. We've done that, and we've done that. Okay, you have just survived part 1. Congratulations. Are there any questions at that stage before we move on to how we set up and run a meet? Does everyone want to take a minute or two to grab a drink or have a 5-minute break? Up to you. Silence from here. They're all stunned. I think they're falling asleep.
Absolutely, yeah, I hear that, Chris. So, yeah, I think now might be a great time. We'll take a quick break, and we will leave the screen just like it is, and leave your volume turned up, and you will hear when we come back. Okay, thank you.